Unlike many previous launches, the company is not trying to recover parts of the spacecraft or booster. In this case, it wants the rocket stages to sink to the bottom of the ocean so that no one can retrieve the technology.
More than 30,000 runners are lining up for the Boston Marathon today. There is rain in the forecast. Now, this race marks 10 years since 3 people were killed in the twin bombings near the finish line. There were ceremonies over the weekend honoring those victims and also the 2 police officers who died pursuing the attackers.
Time now for a look at your Monday weather. Blizzard warnings are posted in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Some areas could see more than a foot of snow just days after parts of the Midwest saw temperatures in the 80s. Looking at the radar, there's rain for the morning commute in the Northeast, and a new storm moves into the Northwest with rain from Washington to Northern California and snow at the higher elevations. Checking today's high temperatures, only 39 in Chicago, 70s across the Southeast today, and around 50 in the Pacific Northwest, 92 in Phoenix.
Coming up, the show that apparently crashed Netflix last night.
But first, supporters of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis launched their first attack ad against Donald Trump.
And the mystery at the Vatican. Why Pope Francis is now defending John Paul II from claims made in the case of a missing girl. We'll have much more on that story when America This Morning continues.
It takes asking the straightforward, tough questions.
Do you believe that Donald Trump should ever be president again?
How would your mom feel about your relationship with your brother now?
I can't imagine what it feels like to go from $20 billion to $100,000.
Yeah.
Are you worried about going to jail?
You write that you had low-grade depression. How'd you get out of that?
The news-making interviews.
You said that there were 6 friends. One of them was sick.
Yeah.
Do you have future political aspirations?
Going to the front line.
The search for survivors. How does this war end?
And getting to the heart of the story.
Thank you for being here. We'll be here for the long run.
ABC News, #1 in the morning, the #1 newscast, #1 in daytime talk, Friday nights, Sunday mornings versus the competition, and the #1 streaming news. Thank you for making ABC News America's trusted, straightforward first choice.
Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
I'm Ginger Z here in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
A third day of fighting is now underway amid fears of a civil war in Sudan. Rival generals are fighting to control the country. More than 50 people have been killed in the violence. Now, the dispute concerns the African nation's transition to civilian rule.
Supporters of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are coming out swinging, and he hasn't even announced he's running for president. A super PAC supporting DeSantis released a new ad taking aim at the Republican frontrunner.
Donald Trump is being attacked by a Democrat prosecutor in New York. So why is he spending millions attacking the Republican governor of Florida? Trump's stealing pages from the Biden-Pelosi playbook.
Former President Trump's campaign fired back, claiming DeSantis is trying to gaslight voters about the future of Medicare and Social Security.
We turn now to the Vatican and Pope Francis defending one of his predecessors amid questions about a missing girl. This morning, Pope Francis is defending John Paul II after the brother of a missing teenager linked her disappearance to the late Pope. Speaking in St. Peter's Square yesterday, Pope Francis said, "I express a grateful thought to the memory of St. John Paul, who in these days has been the object of offensive and unfounded insinuations." Days earlier, the brother of Emanuela Orlandi aired an audio recording on Italian TV saying it was testimony from an Italian mobster that claimed John Paul II would secretly go out at night to harass underage girls. Vatican officials say the allegation lacks any evidence, clues, testimony, or corroboration. The 15-year-old daughter of a Vatican employee, Emanuela, seemingly vanished in 1983 after a music lesson in Rome. Some theories link her disappearance to the failed assassination attempt on John Paul II. Others link her case to a scandal involving the Vatican Bank.
Emanuela was not an ordinary child. She was a Vatican girl.
The Netflix documentary Vatican Girl explores the possible scenarios and provides new testimony from a friend who says Emanuela told her 1 week before she went missing that a high-ranking Vatican cleric made advances toward her.
She decided to go on one of her walks in the Vatican gardens. A person very close to the Pope had bothered her.
The Vatican has denied any involvement in Emanuela's disappearance. In 2019, officials agreed to excavate a tomb inside Vatican City after Emanuela's brother claimed he got a tip saying her remains could be there. But the tomb was empty. John Paul II's longtime secretary called the allegations false from beginning to end.
Coming up, another train crash in the U.S., the second in 2 days.
Also ahead, Budweiser's new move to turn the page after the Bud Light boycott.
Whenever news breaks,
The crush of families here in Poland.
Here in Kentucky, no match for the tornado.
From Monterey Park, California, on the ground in Ukraine.
Reporting from Uvalde, Texas.
ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike in Dnipro, Ukraine.
Reporting from the earthquake in Turkey.
From Charleston, South Carolina, on the 2024 campaign trail.
From Kathmandu, Nepal.
In Truckee, California, covering record snowfall.
Traveling with the president in Mexico City.
Wherever the story.
Here at this airport in Tampa, it's already shut down.
Reporting from the nurses on the picket line.
Reporting from Jerusalem.
Here at 10 Downing Street in London.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is. We're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere. America's #1 streaming news.
Bring them on. If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place that's spectacular as well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
Can I hug you?
Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
Back now with a Canadian Pacific train derailing in Maine, causing a small forest fire over the weekend. The local fire chief said it's a miracle the crew wasn't seriously hurt. Officials say the track bed had washed away, causing the derailment. And last night in Texas, a Union Pacific train collided with an empty train 80 miles from Dallas. An engineer and conductor were both injured.
Budweiser is out with a new ad campaign after facing a boycott over its partnership with a transgender actress. ABC's Derek Dennis reports on the company's response to the fallout.
Let me tell you a story about a beer rooted in the heart of America.
This morning, it's the new Budweiser ad campaign that Anheuser-Busch hopes will help the company ride out a boycott. It features the nostalgia of an iconic Clydesdale galloping through all-American landscapes with men grabbing a couple of cold ones together.
This is a story
from beer.
The ad coming 2 weeks after Bud Light's partnership with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney.
This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it.
Mulvaney's post drew the ire of some Bud Light enthusiasts, including celebrities like Kid Rock, who played target practice with the beer. What the new ad campaign doesn't offer is an explanation for Bud Light breaking away from its traditional male-oriented advertising in favor of a trans actress with 10 million followers on TikTok. Anheuser-Busch CEO Brendan Whitworth saying, "We never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. We are in the business of bringing people together over beer."
I'm not, though, for destroying an American and iconic company for something like this.
Donald Trump Jr., speaking out on his podcast, defended Anheuser-Busch, praising the company for donating to many Republicans.
Frankly, they don't participate in the same woke garbage that other people in the beer industry actually do, who are significantly worse offenders.
Bud Light's marketing director has said the brand is in decline and needs to evolve and be more inclusive. Andrew, Rhiannon.
Derek, thank you. In sports, some big injuries in the NBA playoffs already. The Bucks' Giannis Antetokounmpo left the game against Miami after landing hard on his back. They hope he'll return for Game 2 to try to even the series. And Grizzlies star Ja Morant says his Game 2 status is now in jeopardy after injuring his hand during a fall. The Lakers won that game. The Clippers and Nuggets also won yesterday.
Coming up, music fakes, the impact of artificial intelligence on the recording industry.
Also ahead, one very high-wire balancing act.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
13 women opened their doors to the man who would end their lives.
Truth and Lies, The Boston Strangler, the new true crime podcast series. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts and watch Boston Strangler, starring Keira Knightley, streaming on Hulu.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television. Right now in America, with so much at stake, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
Bring them on. If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives, award-winning, powerful, eye-opening. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis. Streaming weeknights. From America's #1 news comes the all-new ABC News app. If you love being in the know, you're gonna love this. Experience the all-new ABC News app. Download it now.
Time to check the pulse, and we begin with problems at Netflix last night.
It tried to bring fans the Love is Blind reunion live, but frustrated fans were stood up. This is what they saw instead. It was due to technical problems. This is only the second time Netflix has tried to carry a live event, but it did tweet out an apology.
The show finally came on, but was not live. There's always next time. Next, the rise of music fakes in this day of artificial intelligence.
People are creating more AI-generated songs using vocals from their favorite artists. A rendition of Beyonce's song, Cuff It, with Rihanna's voice, has more than 6 million views. But Rihanna never actually recorded that version. And DJ David Guetta recently played an AI-generated Eminem song at a concert.
This is the future rave sound. I'm getting lost in an underground. This is the future rave sound. I'm getting lost in an underground.
So I typed, write a verse in the style of Eminem about future rave. And I went to another AI website that can recreate the voice. I put the text in that, and I played the record, and people went nuts.
Wild. Guetta says he'll only play the song at live events. Later on Good Morning America, how music distributors are working to block AI companies from accessing their music. Next, a real high wire act.
A performer walked a 300-yard tightrope high above the Danube River in Hungary without a harness, and the rope was less than 1 inch thick. When he made it, he said he was relieved that the wind in the forecast had held off. Next, the woman who just emerged from a cave after 500 days underground.
Beatrice Flamini spent all of that time inside a cave in Spain to help study the effects of social isolation. She says she passed time by painting and knitting. She says she lost track of time after about 2 months and did not want to come out. Next, move over chocolate. Marijuana sales have hit a new high.
Figures published by Business Insider show legal sales of marijuana and marijuana products last year surpassed what we spent on chocolate and craft beer combined. That's an estimated $30 billion.
Finally, sometimes the simple pranks are the best.
Here's an example from Yankee Stadium. Check out pitcher Jonathan Loizaga with a huge bubblegum bubble on his cap, courtesy of his teammates. They were nice enough to even pose with him. Top headlines next.
He has no clue.
This is ABC News Live.
The crushing of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
From the capital.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
You're along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
With so much happening these days, it's hard to keep up.
Things change hour by hour, minute by minute.
The historic weather that's now unfolding.
The worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the Right Now. But a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now look at the day ahead. An alert this morning for dog owners and the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different. Early mornings on ABC News Live.
Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends.
Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
Checking more top stories, the trial stemming from a $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit against Fox News has been delayed at least until tomorrow. The judge gave no reason for the delay, but sources tell the Wall Street Journal that Fox is pushing for a settlement with Dominion Voting Systems, which is suing over the false claims on the network about its voting machines.
U.S. forces have carried out a deadly raid in Syria. Officials say a senior ISIS leader is believed to be among 3 people killed. They say there were no American or civilian casualties.
And the search continues for the gunman who killed 7 people at a resort in central Mexico. A child was among the victims. Authorities say the killers also stole the security cameras from the scene after Saturday's killings. All of the victims were Mexican nationals. That area is known for drug cartel violence.
Worker unions are calling for action after a rare fungal infection at a paper mill in Michigan. They want more cleaning of mills across the country and also more testing for workers. The Michigan outbreak is blamed for the death of 1 worker and nearly 100 confirmed or suspected infections.
Taking another look at today's weather, rain and mountain snow in the Pacific Northwest, heavy snow in the upper Midwest, even blizzard warnings in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Some morning rain in the Northeast before it clears out.
And finally this morning, the pizza delivery man who ended up turning into a crime fighter while he was on the job.
All it took was some quick thinking, and he didn't even drop his pizza. Sunday was not an average workday for Tyler Morrell, a pizza delivery driver in Pennsylvania.
Oh my God,
He beached onto the side of this person's lawn, almost took out a couple cars.
Morrell was making a delivery outside Philadelphia where he found himself in the middle of a high-speed chase. Police say they were pursuing a stolen vehicle when the driver crashed. Two suspects get out, and that's when Morrell steps in. Morrell was able to stick his leg out, tripping one of the suspects, causing him to tumble to the ground. Police say because of Morrell's quick thinking, they were able to arrest both suspects.
He gave us the help we needed, which, by tripping him, gave us the time to be able to catch up to the gentleman.
I'm pretty sick of seeing crime like that go on, especially a half a mile down the road. So I was just ready to step up, and if they needed a hand, I was there, or a foot, whatever.
After all this, the pizza was delivered.
Ultimately, he saved the day, and from what I hear, the pizza was saved as well.
10 out of 10 delivered.
Oh boy. Tipping? How about tripping?
There you go. I was hoping he got a big tip from police and the customer.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Delivery,
Most
huh?
people would have probably stayed out of it and, tried to get away from it.
Was it delivery, or was that more like takeout? That's what's making news in America this morning.
Have a great day, everyone.
It's Monday, April 17th. Abortion rights advocates don't exactly trust this Supreme Court, but it could be their only hope. We start here. The abortion pill is legal to produce as we start the week, but how much longer remains uncertain.
A lot at stake. The deadline for this is Wednesday at midnight.
Now, the justices have given themselves just days to decide. If there are nation's closely guarded secrets, should it have been harder to post them online?
This could be something that could happen again and again and again.
A former CIA official weighs in on how to find a leak. And they dreamed of democracy. Now fighter jets are firing rockets into the Capitol.
Satellite images we've been able to get show the city just completely blotted out by black smoke.
What's making Sudan suddenly spiral out of control? From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. In most medication abortions, there are two drugs that are given. Mifepristone is one, misoprostol is the other. Mifepristone, the first one, is usually given first to stop the hormone that supports a pregnancy. Then misoprostol causes the uterus to contract and then empty. Well, earlier this month, a judge ruled that first drug, mifepristone, should have never been approved by the FDA and said within 7 days it would be illegal to make nationwide. That ruling was set to take effect this weekend. Now, it is possible to safely have an abortion solely with misoprostol, but doctors say without the pairing, the effectiveness is lower, which could result in more medical complications, meaning this ruling that was purported to be about women's health has the potential perhaps to send more women to the hospital. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals got involved and said part of this ruling would be put on pause, but the rest would still go into effect this Saturday. Then the Supreme Court came in. ABC's Ann Flaherty's been tracking this hour by hour. And Ann, just so I'm clear, where are we right now? Like at this moment, under federal law, are abortion pills legal?
So as of today, Brad, Monday, April 17th, the abortion drug mifepristone is available in any state where abortion is legal. And it's available under rules that have been around now for a while. So that's up to 10 weeks. A patient can get it via telehealth, and they can get it mailed to their home. So all of that, though, could change come by Thursday morning. And that's because late last Friday, as the court ruling was about to take effect from the Fifth Circuit, Justice Samuel Alito issued a 5-day administrative stay of the rulings by these lower courts that would have either restricted the drug's access entirely, or it would have allowed it, but under these really strict new rules. So what Alito did was effectively call a timeout. And it gives the justices on the full Supreme Court time to hear from the plaintiffs in this case and make a decision about what to do next. So they basically have two options. They can keep everything on hold, and that's what they call a stay pending appeal, or they can lift that stay and allow the restrictions to move ahead. And those restrictions would make it much, much tougher to get access to this drug. It would eliminate the ability to get it through the mail. It would limit it to 7 weeks. That's close to when women typically find out that they're pregnant. Right now, it's available up to 10 weeks. And you couldn't get it through a telehealth appointment. So that severely restricts it, particularly for women in rural areas. So, a lot at stake. The deadline for this is Wednesday at midnight. So we expect to hear from the Supreme Court on this by then.
And that's just for the Supreme Court to decide on whether these rules should be allowed to go into effect while the entire case is sorted out, right? Like the merits of the case would actually get solved, further down the line?
Right. So we're not even talking about the merits of this case yet. What we're talking about is whether or not to allow this freeze of the lower court rulings, this stay pending appeal, to stay in effect. And we actually don't know what the Supreme Court is going to do on this because, the stakes are really high. This isn't just about abortion. These lawsuits challenge the idea that the FDA has the power to decide which medications Americans can take. And the plaintiffs have argued that they've overstepped their bounds, that they ignored critical safety problems, and they need to be reined in. I think what's really interesting here as we watch the Supreme Court take on this case is that just last year, they were talking about states' rights on abortion. So now we're talking about effectively a nationwide ban of this medication, even in states where abortion is legal. And the reason why they're talking about it is because we're not arguing about abortion. What we're arguing about with this case is whether or not this drug is safe. The FDA says it is. The plaintiffs have argued that it's not. Now, I think worth pointing out that the mainstream medical community has backed the FDA on this. They point toward large studies on this drug that show that it is extremely safe. We haven't seen safety concerns over the 23 years it's been on the market. But really at stake now, this question of whether or not the FDA has that power, that's going to be what the Supreme Court is going to be talking about.
So that's on the federal level. But there are state laws taking shape right now that continue to kind of reshape how Americans get access to abortion care, right? Which states are most significant to you?
So the latest, of course, is Florida.
And we are proud to be pro-life in the state of Florida.
So this is Ron DeSantis. He's, obviously considered a presidential hopeful in 2024. And he just signed a 6-week abortion ban. It's not going to take effect yet. The state is waiting to hear from the state Supreme Court on a 15-week ban before this one could be enacted. But if it is allowed to be enacted, that turns much of the U.S. South into just a solid red block where abortion rights are not accessible. So women would have to travel if they want to find an abortion. That's from Texas all the way to Florida, going up to West Virginia. It would be very difficult to find any kind of legal abortion.
This will get resolved state by state, but it's going to get resolved at the ballot box in the 2024 election.
I think it's worth pointing out that there are other states, too, that have some interesting novel ways they've been struggling to get their abortion bans through their state Supreme Court. So Utah, for example, they have legislation on the books that's supposed to go into effect in May that would essentially require every abortion clinic to have a hospital license. Wyoming, they have a law that's going to take effect in July that will specifically go after abortion medication. That's the first state to specifically go after those pills and to say, we don't want them in our state as of July. So a lot of states trying different ways to limit abortion rights access as all of this is kind of winding through the courts.
Yeah, and again, the courts in each of these states basically saying, hey, let's hold off, let's keep the status quo in place while we figure this out, except on the federal level. That's where you had this judge saying basically, yeah, you get a week, then it goes in whether you like it or not. That is kind of what the Supreme Court has to get its head around within the next few days. So, Ann Flaherty, thanks for the heads up. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Brad.
Next up on Start here, if you needed to find a leak in your house, it would help to know your plumber's credentials were solid, right? Officials have questions for military leak seekers after the break.
Whenever news breaks,
the crush of families here in Poland.
Here in Kentucky, no match for the tornado.
From Monterey Park, California, on the ground in Ukraine.
Reporting from Uvalde, Texas.
ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike in Dnipro, Ukraine. Reporting from the earthquake in Turkey.
From Charleston, South Carolina, on the 2024 campaign trail.
From Kathmandu, Nepal.
Truckee, California, covering record snowfall.
Traveling with the president in Mexico City.
Wherever the story.
Here at this airport in Tampa, it's already shut down.
Reporting from the nurses on the picket line.
Reporting from Jerusalem.
Here at 10 Downing Street in London.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is, we're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live, streaming free everywhere. America's #1 streaming news. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television. Right now in America, with so much at stake, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
For over 20 years, we've given some real-life superhero moms the mother of all surprises. It's GMA's Breakfast in Bed.
This is amazing. I had no idea.
And now, this year, we want to give our biggest, most epic live Mother's Day surprise yet to the most deserving mom.
Oh, my goodness.
So go now to goodmorningamerica.com or scan this QR code to find out how to enter to share your mom's story and honor her the GMA way.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, exclusives. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis, streaming weeknights.
Jack Teixeira was arrested last Thursday live on national television.
A man you can see in a green shirt and red basketball shorts leaving the house, his hands on his head, his hands in the air at times.
The 21-year-old member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard was confronted by a heavily armed FBI unit after being named as a suspect in one of the most consequential military leaks in U.S. history.
I think he was probably just on Discord messing around with his friends.
If you think you're being a patriot, why don't you check first before you go doing something like that?
All day we heard about him from his friends, his family, his alleged online confidants. Well, on Friday, at his arraignment, we began to hear what the U.S. government claims it has on him. Let's go to Mick Mulroy. He's a former Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary for the Middle East. He's also a former CIA executive, and he's now an ABC News contributor. Mick, what's sticking out to you so far about this suspect and what the U.S. government is alleging here?
So we know he's an airman in the Massachusetts Air National Guard, which is in a specific military occupational specialty is called a cyber transport journeyman, which is a long way of saying an IT specialist. So somebody who maintains the networks, the computer networks that the Massachusetts Air National Guard uses to communicate with other military units.
Is it a given that somebody like him would have access to secrets about Russia's capabilities and Ukraine and North Korea's capabilities? Is that a thing that an IT guy in the Massachusetts Air National Guard would have?
So, Brad, not necessarily. So he's an IT specialist, so he has to have access to the actual network, which is why he was required to have a top secret clearance. That said, when it comes to sensitive intelligence, you have to have a need to know, and it's very clear that this individual had no need to know anything about the stuff that he was actually posting online. So he should not have been allowed to actually get on these documents, to see them, and especially not to print them.
So in your mind, do the allegations make it sound like he hacked the information? Like he has access to the network, but not to these documents? He had to go and find these documents that he shouldn't have access to?
So I don't know if it actually required him to hack anything. It should have been set up so that if he clicked on a document, that his supervisor would know which document he clicked on. And certainly if he printed it, the same thing. There should have been some kind of alert. But he's on the network. But that needs to be changed. If this is something that all people that can service the network can get on any database, that's where we run into significant problems with people being able to see things that they really don't need to know for their job. And when it comes to that, and then the ability to actually print it and take it outside of what's called a SCIF, which is a sensitive compartmented information facility, and then post it online, this could be something that could happen again and again and again. We need to do much better at limiting access, not necessarily to the network, this is called JWICS, but not necessarily to the JWICS network, but especially the documents that are in it, because if you don't need to know the information in that document, you should not have access.
Well, yeah, it sounds like originally, according to people who are on this Discord server with him, that he was originally kind of copying stuff down and writing down what he had seen on the documents. Then the government says he just started photographing these things, like taking them, photographing them, posting them. What kind of questions does this raise for the U.S. military and for U.S. intel?
So I think right now, Brad, they're looking at, did he just do this because he wanted to impress his friends in this group chat. And maybe that's the case. It's still no excuse. He's the one with the top secret clearance. He knows how serious this is, and he's going to have to deal with the consequences of that. But the other thing I think they're going to look at is just who was in these chats. If they were American citizens who knowingly reposted and put it on like Twitter and Telegram and all these other stuff, they might be subject to criminal liability.
Oh, even if they're not armed forces, like if it says classified or something, you can't do that.
Yes, there is specific U.S. statutory law that makes it a crime for a U.S. citizen to knowingly post, publicly disclose it, I should say, sensitive, classified U.S. Information and military information. So I'm not saying that they did that. I know that they're looking at that, and that's significant. The other thing they're going to look at is, and this has been reported, I don't know it to be true, but there was foreigners inside this group. And was it potentially an intelligence operation that pushed him to disclose more and more? I don't know that, but that is definitely something they're going to look at. And it's a vulnerability going forward because a lot of young service members, especially young men, are on these gaming chats and they don't really know who they're talking to. And they don't even know where they are when they're talking to them.
Well, and that kind of raises one of my last questions is, like, are there concerns about the types of service members who have access to this information? Especially, I'm thinking of like the recruiting issues that the military has had in recent years. Could this be somebody who might not have been trusted a few years ago who now, hey, we're short on numbers. We have to trust, younger and less experienced service members?
So I'm not sure if the current recruiting issues had anything to do with, this individual who might not have gotten in before getting in now. I just don't know enough about him. But I would say this, and something that's going to be looked at. In the past, when you got a top secret security clearance, and I obviously had it, my job at the CIA and at the Department of Defense.
Sure.
Every 5 years, you had to sit down again with the investigator in an interview, talk about yourself, talk about your any criminal activity you had, any credit issues you had. They go talk to your neighbors, your friends, all these things. Every 5 years, that used to be the case. Now, they only do it the first time, and then unless they see something significant, every 5 years, you simply fill out with the form. It's called an SF-86, but you don't actually sit down with an interviewer. I don't know if that had anything to do and something that could have been caught with this individual, but it's certainly something I think they're going to look at, and they're also going to look at just how many people have access to top secret information and whether they really need to have that access.
Wow, that's really interesting. And at 21 years old, I don't imagine like 5 years versus 10 years, whatever, would have affected him. But there have been questions over sort of, whether the U.S. is getting too loose or too tight with classified information. We'll see what happens next. Nick Mulroy, thank you so much.
Great to be with you, Brad.
For about a decade, if you wanted a shorthand example of the horrors of civil war, the prime example was Sudan. For more than 20 years, we had watched battles in the Central African nation that had swept up villages, families, child soldiers, inflicting more strife than the average person is even capable of comprehending. It ended with a new country being established, South Sudan. But in each of these neighboring countries now, the violence continued. In the north, what we would just call Sudan, it took another decade for a dictatorship to be toppled. But in recent days, things there have gotten even worse in what many Africans are calling the worst case possibility for this fragile, battered country. ABC's Shannon Crawford covers the State Department. Shannon, we've heard about violence on and off in this region for years, of course, but how bad did it get this weekend?
Brad, this is being described as a nightmare scenario. What's happening in Sudan right now is reminding many residents there about the civil war that they thought they escaped. They thought they were working past. Because what's happening right now is an intense power struggle with countless civilians and aid workers caught in the crossfire. Over the past couple days, Sudan's capital, Khartoum, a city with a metro population of over 5 million people, has been rocked by explosions, zigzagged by low-flying fighter jets, basically the background for an all-out urban warfare scenario. Satellite images we've been able to get show the city just completely blotted out by black smoke. It's just a very, very desolate scene right now.
What led to this? Do we know, Shannon?
Well, the sides clashing here are Sudan's military and a rival paramilitary group, a militia known as Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Now, tensions have been bad between the two for some time, but it all boiled over on Saturday when the military started bombing RSF air bases, and the violence has only continued on from there. Now, the actual death toll at this moment stands around 86, but it's unclear really how good that count is, how accurate that count is, and it does seem likely to rise.
And so when I think about people who have lived through so much, Shannon, I mean, what is next for them? I mean, do we have a sense of how this is about to affect the populace there?
We are hearing from the UN World Food Program, its director, Cindy McCain. Now, she noted that the program actually lost 3 of its aid workers. They were killed in the fighting there. And she said that the World Food Program has had to temporarily suspend its operations. Now, of course, there are stakes here because Sudan is one of those countries that is suffering from intense hunger after the drought has affected much of the region. So many people there are in need of food aid.
When it first happened, I thought there was a thunderstorm. And then we looked outside and there was just massive amounts of smoke. And it was very clear that it was gunfire.
And we're also hearing from an American there, actually. Her name is Lakshmi. She's saying that the scenario is very, very chaotic. It doesn't seem like the fighting is de-escalating.
There's been shelling. We saw a tank the other night and I can hear them. It's really nonstop.
Basically, she described the sound as a thunderstorm from all the explosions and everything that's happening around her.
It's always the goal is to just kind of like stay as far away as you can, stay inside, and don't panic.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is actually traveling right now in Asia, but he said that he had an opportunity to talk to some high-level officials in Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia is one of the countries that's been trying to kind of orchestrate a peace process here and bring these two sides together so they can work forward to the democracy that so many people dreamed of. But at this moment, it does not seem that cooler tempers are going to prevail here anytime soon. But, of course, he's calling for both sides to lay down their arms and accept a ceasefire with no conditions, but even a temporary pause in the fighting that the UN imposed over the afternoon yesterday. It didn't seem like that did very much to stop the violence, unfortunately. The State Department, of course, they're monitoring the situation very, very closely, in part because they want to make sure that Americans like Lakshmi are okay and they can get out if it gets any worse there. But right now, Brad, they tell us that there's no plan in place to do a government-coordinated evacuation for those American travelers right now. But this is definitely a very precarious situation. They don't want to see this conflict quickly spiral into a scenario like Yemen or Syria and have Americans left behind.
You think about countries that could be teetering on civil war. Like the worst case scenario is like jets bombing cities that have their own people in them. That seems like where this is going. That's how bad it's getting. Shannon Crawford covering the State Department. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brad.
All right, one more quick break. When we come back, think of it fondly. One Last Thing is next.
I was so young. I just wanted that body. I wanted to be like with the it girls. This stuff has to come out.
Why are so many women now removing their implants?
I feel more feminine now with them out than I ever did with them in. And it always makes me want to cry, but I felt like my body was like, thank you.
Enough is enough. It all has to come out.
Impact by Nightline, now streaming on Hulu.
13 women opened their doors to the man who would end their lives.
Another body in Boston.
A killer held Boston in a state of fear. It was a crime spree that stumped police for years.
Now, journey deep behind the deadly details.
They had hundreds and hundreds of suspects.
And into Truth and Lies, The Boston Strangler, the new true crime podcast series. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Boston Strangler, starring Keira Knightley, streaming on Hulu.
This is where the newsmakers come first in the morning to be heard. America's #1 morning show.
How would your mom feel about your relationship with your brother now?
I can't imagine what it feels like to go from $20 billion to $100,000. Yeah. Are you worried about going to jail?
You write that you had low-grade depression. How'd you get out of that?
Wherever the story, ABC's Good Morning America is right there. Right now in America, with so much at stake, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
From Memphis, Tennessee, I'm M. Wynn. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
And one last thing. They're the notes any Broadway fan knows. After all, New York's most famous subterranean star has been causing drama for more than 35 years. Well, yesterday, after 14,000 performances, seen by nearly 7 million audience members, Phantom of the Opera closed on Broadway.
For the final time, the curtain will go up and the chandelier will come down.
It's far and away New York's longest-running musical of all time, and the numbers are beyond anything the industry has ever seen. In a city where shows flop more often than not, it's grossed $1.5 billion. It's spawned touring productions and spin-offs and films.
Ralph! Whatever you believe, this man, this thing, is not your father.
It's the brainchild of Andrew Lloyd Webber, the musical impresario who had already written Evita about a true love story, and Cats about, well, it's still unclear what Cats is about.
I always, since I was a little boy, loved musicals.
But Phantom has become Webber's opus, not just a tale of a misunderstood man, but a stage spectacle that few productions have ever rivaled.
Broadway is the reason that so many people come to New York, and I felt very, very much a part of the community, even though I'm British. I still feel that this is the home of musicals and where I want to be.
The pandemic, of course, has been tough on all Broadway shows, but Phantom had already seen a downturn in recent years. The announcement of this closing, though, did what producers had not seen in too long. It brought fans flocking back to the majestic theater.
I bawled my eyes out in the lobby. I'm just so happy to be here.
As the curtain rose last night, there was one more twist to be had. The current Phantom had to be replaced because of vocal issues.
And that unfortunately happens sometimes for a performer doing 8 shows a week of this kind of intensity.
Luckily for the audience, this was no masquerade. The understudy had performed this role more than 200 times.
I think he was feeling the emotion in the room and gave us a sentimental sort of Phantom who's frightening enough, but was really feeling every moment.
Which is another sign that this show is something special. Even in a production that requires 130 performers every night, there has been less turnover than you might expect. Over the last 35 years, less than 20 men have ever been cast as the Phantom on Broadway. Some actors have stayed with the show for much of their professional lives.
My dressing roommate has been here for 20 years.
This fictional opera house and its labyrinthine passageways isn't just a setting with fog machines. To a generation of theater goers, it's home. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy. That's all a good musical asks of you.
That's all I ask
You know what also doesn't get enough hype about the show? Andrew Lloyd Webber also revolutionized some of the rules for orchestra unions because of how freaked out they got when Phantom came in with this wild synthesized music. You didn't know how feisty those cellists could get until those negotiations. We will be back tomorrow. Still no charge for the ticket, but just like those Broadway stars, we really love a good review. 5 stars if possible. I'm Brad Milkey. See you tomorrow.
For over 20 years, we've given some real-life superhero moms the mother of all surprises. Oh my goodness! It's GMA's Breakfast in Bed.
This is amazing. I had no idea.
And now, this year, we want to give our biggest, most epic live Mother's Day surprise yet to the most deserving mom.
Oh my goodness.
So go now to goodmorningamerica.com or scan this QR code to find out how to enter to share your mom's story and honor her the GMA way.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show. I was so young. I just wanted that body.
I wanted to be like with the it girls. This stuff has to come out.
Why are so many women now removing their implants?
I feel more feminine now with them out than I ever did with them in. Like, and it always makes me want to cry, but I felt like my body was like, thank you.
Enough is enough. It all has to come out.
Impact by Nightline, now streaming on Hulu.
Brooke Shields, the most photographed woman in the world.
A sexualized child model.
Exploitation.
What happened to her isn't really about her, it's just about women.
I let myself be vulnerable, and this is the first time I've ever spoken about what happened. I thought my one no should have been enough. You know.
When someone like Brooke Shields talks about it, it makes a difference.
I'm amazed that I survived any of it.
With so much happening these days, it's hard to keep up.
Things change hour by hour, minute by minute.
The historic weather that's now unfolding.
The worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the Right Now. With a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now look at the day ahead. An alert this morning for dog owners and the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different. Early mornings on ABC News Live.
From America's #1 news source comes the all-new ABC News app. Breaking news, incredible video, faster, smarter, and it can customize to you and your interests. If you love being in the know, you're gonna love this. Experience what all the buzz is about. Experience the all-new ABC News app. Download it now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. We begin tonight here in Buffalo, London, in Alaska, Uvalde, Kentucky, from Poland, Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
Did you ever have a conversation about an abortion? Is she lying?
Do you have a political aspiration?
Absolutely.
You ready for this? Go! You're going to deliver a show that will be remembered forever.
Ooh, the pressure on me.
You are just a tough, bad.
Reporting from Monterey Park, California, I'm Robin Roberts. Wherever the story is, we're going to take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Mona Kosar Abdi. Today on ABC News Live, new revelations from that trove of leaked top-secret documents, the new report on additional Chinese spy balloons over U.S. military assets as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle question why the 21-year-old Air National Guardsman accused of leaking the documents had access to them. A delay in the Fox News defamation trial, what we're learning about the judge's decision to push back the start of the $1.6 billion case. The most powerful rocket in the world set to lift off, how it could bring about a new era of space travel to the moon and beyond. The power of water as rising sea levels swallow up Louisiana's Ile de Jean Charles. Our Ginger Z is live in the Mississippi Delta with one of the first communities displaced by climate change. Netflix and fail. The fallout after the highly anticipated Love is Blind reunion failed to air live. What we're learning about the hours-long delay. But we do begin with the latest on the leak of classified documents from the Pentagon. The 21-year-old Air National Guardsman accused of leaking the documents remains behind bars. This as we learn what U.S. intelligence agencies knew about that Chinese spy balloon that gripped the nation's attention for weeks and why the suspect had top secret security clearance. Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz is in Washington with the very latest.
New revelations from that trove of leaked top-secret documents. This time, eye-popping information about Chinese spy balloons, like the one that the U.S. shot down in January after it passed over sensitive national security sites. The Washington Post reporting that the leaks reveal U.S. intelligence agencies were aware of up to 4 additional Chinese spy balloons, including one that flew over a U.S. carrier strike group in the Pacific and another that crashed in the South China Sea. The suspect charged with transmitting that information, Airman Jack Teixeira, arrested at his Massachusetts home on Thursday, worked as a computer technician with the Massachusetts Air National Guard. He made his first court appearance on Friday, accused of violating parts of the Espionage Act. Teixeira had high-level top-secret clearance, which the Pentagon has said was needed to do his job. But lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are demanding more answers.
We need to know the facts. We need to know who this airman was, why he felt he had the authority or ability to show off confidential documents, secret documents to his friends.
The system failed. This is a major failure. Some people need to be fired over this.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken arriving in Japan for a G7 summit, trying to calm allies.
What I've heard so far, at least, is an appreciation for the steps that we're taking, and it's not affected our cooperation. I just haven't seen that.
But there is no question a leak like this is damaging, not only revealing secret information, but in some cases the sources and methods used by the intelligence community to obtain it. The president and the Pentagon have now called for an extensive review of how secret information is stored and who has access to it. Mona?
Martha Raddatz, thank you. Turning now to the hunt for a killer after the latest mass shooting in America. At least 4 people were killed and more than 24 injured when gunfire erupted during a 16th birthday party in Alabama. Among those killed, a teenager just weeks away from graduating high school and celebrating his sister's birthday. Elwin Lopez is in Daveville, Alabama with the very latest.
Authorities are searching for answers after a shooting at a Sweet 16 birthday party left 4 people dead.
There are no words to describe the emotions that we're all feeling.
Officials say gunfire rang out around 10:30 p.m. Saturday night at this dance hall in Dadeville, injuring 28 people.
If you or you know somebody that has any information about what occurred last night, I cannot stress this enough, ever how minor you think it is, we absolutely need you to share it.
One of those killed, the birthday girl's brother, 18-year-old Phil Dowdle, a star athlete set to take off to Jacksonville State on a football scholarship.
He had one goal to get to the NFL and take care of his mom.
His high school coach says the teen's mother was also injured.
His mom was inside the building.
Yeah.
She was also shot?
Yes, she was shot also. She was a chaperone in here, so she was hit a couple times in the legs, too.
What did she say about how she's doing?
It's tough right now for him, real tough.
One hospital confirming it admitted 15 patients with gunshot wounds, most of them teenagers, 5 in critical condition. Survivor Bray Hutchinson speaking to ABC News from her hospital bed.
When I first felt that I got shot, I grabbed onto somebody, I don't know who, and I was yelling for help, and nobody would help me, so I had to gain my strength and walk outside after being shot.
So far this year has seen more mass shootings than days. President Biden issuing a statement following this latest shooting, saying in part, "This is outrageous and unacceptable. Our communities need and deserve better."
And Mona, I spoke to the mayor here. He described this massacre as senseless. It's unclear what led to the shooting and who was behind it. Mona?
Elwin Lopez, thank you. A Kansas City family is demanding the arrest of a homeowner who shot their 16-year-old son after the teen mistakenly went to the wrong address. Hundreds coming together yesterday to protest outside the home where the teen was shot. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office says it must still collect evidence before deciding on charges. ABC's Alex Perez has the latest.
Protests in Kansas City after 16-year-old Ralph Yarl was shot by a homeowner when he mistakenly went to the wrong home. Police say the high school junior's parents asked him to pick up his siblings at an address on 115th Terrace, but he accidentally went to a home on 115th Street, where, according to his family, he was shot in the head through a glass door after he rang the doorbell. Yarl recovering in the hospital.
This child and this child's family knows that there are people working hard, a number of people working hard to make sure there is justice.
The shooter, who has not yet been identified, was taken into custody, then released pending further investigation.
You do have a police department that is listening
that cares, and we take all of these cases seriously.
Hundreds took to the streets demanding the shooter's arrest.
This should not be the fate of black children.
The family hopeful for a full recovery.
Ralph will feel a lot of love because this is a lot of people. It's amazing.
And Mona, at this point, authorities say there's nothing to indicate this shooting was racially motivated. It remains unclear when exactly a decision on charges could be made. Mona?
Alex Perez, thank you. The $1.6 billion defamation trial of Fox News, which was set to begin today, has been delayed. In a surprise announcement, the judge said the trial will start tomorrow instead. ABC's Faith Abube is outside court in Wilmington, Delaware, with more. Faith, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, Mona. We're just waiting for Judge Eric Davis to call the court back into session today to make this announcement and hopefully offer more details about exactly what this delay is about, because we all want to know, right? Well, you'll remember jury selection was supposed to continue on Friday, but the judge postponed day 2 of jury selection and said that there were enough potential jurors to finish jury selection today and then go straight into opening statements. That's what we were expecting until last night. Well, now we're not even expecting those potential jurors to actually make it here to the courthouse. That could change, but right now it's unclear what this delay is about. But the Wall Street Journal, which is a publication owned by Rupert Murdoch, is citing people familiar with the decision, saying that Fox made a late push last night to settle this case out of court. Murdoch, of course, is part of this case as well. There are no other details available right now. We did reach out to Dominion attorneys. They did not comment. We also reached out to the Fox side. They have not commented just yet. So again, we're just waiting outside the courthouse right now, the Delaware Superior Court, waiting for Judge Eric Davis to actually come out and make this announcement and explain exactly why this delay is happening.
Well, Faith, if this does go to trial as planned, what's at stake?
Well, there's a lot at stake here, of course. Depending on which side you talk to, there are different things that each side is saying. And, you know, when you talk to Fox News, their attorneys believe that this is a major case and has big stakes for free press and free speech. The Dominion side has made arguments that this is about holding companies and people accountable for any lies that they knowingly spread about other people. Of course, there's a potential $1.6 billion payout on the line here as well if Fox were to lose this case. But now with this potential of a settlement discussion happening, you know, this case could go either way. We are not sure what these details are, but of course, as soon as we learn those details, we'll bring them to you right here on ABC News Live.
Faith Abube in Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you so much. And today's Boston Marathon marks 10 years since the deadly bombing at the finish line. This morning, runners will see a One Boston Day logo at the finish line with 3 rings for the lives lost, the hundreds injured, and countless more impacted. ABC's Trevor Ault is along the marathon route with more. Trevor, good morning.
Well, Mona, this is the 127th Boston Marathon, but of course that 10-year mark is top of mind. 10 years since those bombs shook this city, but also 10 years of remembering the survivors and remembering the victims as well. And this weekend, there were a number of memorials. We had officials laying wreaths at the bombing site, and they also unveiled the One Boston Day marker. That marker has 3 rings on it for the lives taken, for the hundreds who were injured, and for the countless more who were also impacted. And while Boston certainly remembers the tragedy of that day, they're also reflecting on 10 years of Boston banding together, the outpouring of support for the people in need, the years of charitable efforts under that mantra, of course, Boston Strong. And one of the people killed 10 years ago at the race was a child, Martin Richard. He was just 8 years old at the time. Now, 10 years later, Martin's friends and classmates are 18, which means they are now old enough to run the Boston Marathon, and they are doing that today for the very first time. They will be crossing the finish line in Martin's honor. Mona.
Boston strong indeed, Trevor Ault. Thank you. And overseas now to a country in chaos. 2 rival generals are fighting for control over the African nation of Sudan. The deadly violence is escalating and nearly 100 civilians have been killed. Marcus Moore has the latest.
Chaos unfolding across Sudan as fighting enters its 3rd day. Tanks rolling through the streets of the capital city, Khartoum, with buildings burning and smoke rising near the presidential palace. And fighter jets circling overhead, firing missiles. Gunfire interrupting a live television broadcast. Planes at Khartoum International Airport heavily damaged, as seen in these before and after photos. Lakshmi Parthasarathi from Boston, a tourist in Sudan.
Woke up to the sound of gunshots, and while I was here in Khartoum,
Right now, she has no easy option to get out.
There were people running, and we saw jets, and yeah, it looked like all-out war was happening, like right there.
The conflict coming in the wake of what the U.S. had hoped could be a peaceful transition to civilian rule for Africa's third largest nation. But according to Sudan Doctors Syndicate, at least 97 civilians have been killed and more than 300 injured since the start of fighting in many cities in Sudan. And Mona, this morning we are learning of a dire situation at some of the hospitals in Sudan with limited access now to electricity, also no ambulances for some of the victims. And we've heard that it has been difficult for people to even reach the hospitals because of the situation that is unfolding there. Also, a number of aid groups are suspending their operations in Sudan because of the violence. And as you know, 15 million people are said to be food insecure in Sudan. And the concern is that this situation could make that even worse. The African Union, the Arab League, and the United States right now calling for an immediate end to the violence there. Mona.
All right, Marcus Moore, thank you. And coming up, love is patient. Love is kind, but fans of Love is Blind are angry. The fallout after the show's big reunion fail. Make sure to stay with us. We have that coming up.
Whenever news breaks,
the crush of families here in Poland.
Here in Kentucky, no match for the tornado.
From Monterey Park, California, on the ground in Ukraine.
Reporting from Uvalde, Texas, ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike in Dnipro, Ukraine.
Reporting from the earthquake in Turkey.
From Charleston, South Carolina, on the 2024 campaign trail.
From Kathmandu, Nepal.
In Truckee, California, covering record snowfall.
Traveling with the president in Mexico City.
Wherever the story.
Here at this airport in Tampa, it's already shut down.
Reporting from the nurses on the picket line.
Reporting from Jerusalem.
Here at 10 Downing Street in London.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is. We're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere. America's #1 streaming news.
Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. A search is on for 3 Americans who went missing at sea after they set sail from Mexico nearly 2 weeks ago. Now the families of the missing are asking the public for any help in bringing their loved ones home. Matt Rivers is in Mexico City with the very latest.
The urgent search for 3 Americans who disappeared nearly 2 weeks ago while sailing off the coast of Mazatlan, Mexico. According to authorities, Carrie O'Brien, her husband Frank O'Brien, and William Gross plan to leave on April 4th, headed to San Diego aboard this 44-foot sailboat named Oceanbound. The group also planned to stop in Cabo San Lucas on the 6th for supplies, but they haven't been heard from since they left.
That part of the world, though, especially the Baja Peninsula, it is not heavily populated. There's not a lot of radio towers. There's not cell phone towers. So communications there are just inherently difficult.
The Mexican Navy telling ABC News there has been no record of the trio ever arriving at Cabo San